It's Super Bowl Sunday. You know who won. I don't. And I'm going to tie it back to baseball.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Right now, FanDuel customers, the new ones, can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app and head to FanDuel.com to get started. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. I'm on Sully Baseball on Blue Sky. I'm not there much. Just post your comments right here on YouTube, and I will read them. Even those of you who are mad at me and unsubscribe to me for whatever reason. And even if you do hate listen to me, if you're doing it every day, put that hashtag down, Everyday Sully, and I get to know who is listening to us. Boy, it is Super Bowl Sunday. The game's going to start in about an hour and a half. This is one of those situations where I'm going to talk about stuff beforehand and afterwards. I wish the Sully who will be at the end of the show could speak to me right now and say, hey, go to FanDuel, liquidate your retirement fund, go to FanDuel, and we're going to pull a Biff from Back to the Future 2 and just put all the money on blank. Now, I don't really follow football, but I am going to watch the Super Bowl. Why? Because I enjoy the Super Bowl, the pageantry and everything. I know some people are politicizing this, that, and the other thing. Let's just watch the Super Bowl. Can we just do that? Can we just don't? If something's giving someone pleasure and it's not at someone's expense, can we just? It's been a bit. It's been a bit right now. Let's just enjoy stuff in life, okay? I don't think I can name a single member of the Eagles. Randall Cunningham is not there anymore. The only person I know, Pat Mahomes' son and Taylor Swift's boyfriend are playing for Kansas City. And I know the Eagles have won a Super Bowl in the last decade, and I think the Chiefs have won the rest of them. So it's not like Chiefs fans or Eagles fans are exactly starving for a Super Bowl title. But I am thinking about how this Super Bowl victory, which I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to predict Kansas City's going to win. And I think they're going to win final score 5-4. I think Kansas City's going to get a field goal and a safety, and I think Philadelphia is going to get 2 safeties. So I think the final score is going to be 5-4. I wonder what the odds are for that. That's my dream Super Bowl final score, 5-4. I digress. I'm going to pick Kansas City for no other reason than they just keep winning them. And they're in that kind of Patriots sort of run right now that happens in football, doesn't happen in baseball. Football has a salary cap. Baseball does not. And we're going to cover that a little bit later this week, where I'm going to be doing an episode about the things that I'm just no longer have the patience to listen to the other side about. There's sometimes you respect someone's opinion, but other times you just hear the wrong facts being thrown out and you just say, I'm done. I'm done. And there are some things that I hear baseball fans say to this day that make me say, I'm done respecting your opinion because it's not based in reality. And the call for a salary cap is one of them. And there are a couple other things that I hear commonly said, and I'm saying, you can have your opinion, but if it's not based in reality, I am not going to respect it. That is an episode. Will it be clickbait? I don't know. But this is the time of year where I'm getting tired of some stuff. Oh, and by the way, pitchers and catchers are reporting. I think the Cubs pitchers and catchers report today. So there's probably going to be a flurry of signings. Take your time, Alex Bregman. But we are going to tie this back into baseball because obviously I don't do Locked On NFL. I want to end that rumor right now. But either Kansas City fans or Philadelphia fans are going to have a huge fun day today, and the other set will be banging their head against the wall, similar to San Francisco 49er fans did last year. Now, how does this tie back into baseball? Well, we can make some assumptions that a lot of Chiefs fans are also Royals fans. I'm sure, and basically, I can tell you as a high school teacher, I see in Los Angeles County, which now there are two teams in Los Angeles, the Rams and I guess the Chargers. A grand total of 0 Los Angeles Charger fans have ever crossed my path. But we have two teams here, one of whom has won a recent Super Bowl. And I can't tell you how many Kansas City Chiefs shirts I see at my high school. And almost all of them are worn by high school age girls because they're Taylor Swift fans. I'm not a hater. All right. I can get down to this sick beat, but I don't care either way. She sings some fun pop songs. They're bigger fish to fry in the world. But we can pretty much say that there is a lot of Kansas City Chief fans who are also Kansas City Royal fans. And likewise, there is a tremendous Venn diagram of Philadelphia Philly fans and Philadelphia Eagle fans. Michael Ferraro, I'm looking at you. Many of my cousins who grew up in Delaware, I'm looking at you. There's a lot of crossover there. And I've always wondered about how a championship in one sport can take the pressure off of some of the other teams. I'm a native New Englander. I'm still a Red Sox. The Red Sox are still my team. But because of the show, I follow every team. The Celtics, I don't follow them nearly as closely as I did as a kid, but when they won the championship last year, I was very happy about it. I do not care about the Patriots at all. I not 1 inch of me knows a thing about them, and I don't care. And if I have a hockey team, it's the San Jose Sharks because I was living in the Bay Area when they were formed, and it was fun to root for an expansion team. But I do know there's a lot when a Boston team wins, there's a lot of crossover between Red Sox, Patriots, Celtics, and Bruins. And so when one team wins, it kind of gives a fan base a chance to have a celebration. And it may take a little bit of the pressure off of some of the other teams. It's one of the reasons why, in a weird way, the New York Liberty winning this year, which for a lot of people, if you're a teenager in New York, that's the first title you've ever experienced, the WNBA New York Liberty. Yankees haven't won in a while. Mets haven't won in a while. Giants, Jets, Islanders, Knicks, and the Nets haven't won since they were the ABA. So, and the Devils it's been a little bit for the Devils as well. So when a fan base gets a championship, it should psychologically take a little bit of the edge off of it. Growing up in New England in the 80s, when the Red Sox lost the colossal disaster of the 86 World Series, the fact that the Celtics had won the World Championship earlier that year did take a little of the sting out of it. I think that every major sports market should have at least one parade a decade. And you've seen things like when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. That was the first Seattle championship in decades. When the Cavaliers won the NBA title, that was the first Cleveland championship since Jim Brown was playing, the first Cleveland championship of my lifetime. And the Cavaliers winning that remarkable come-from-behind series against the Warriors took a little of the sting off of Cleveland losing the World Series in extra innings in Game 7 to the Cubs, I would imagine. I mean, it's a devastating game if you're a Cleveland fan, especially because they were essentially one swing away from winning. A home run in the bottom of the 9th, or actually a home run with 2 outs in the bottom of the 10th, they would have won the World Series. They had a 3-game-to-1 lead. So when a team wins, it should take a little pressure off of everyone else. But I'm thinking a little bit about these two franchises, in Kansas City and in Philadelphia. By the way, the previous two homes of the Athletics. I did the suffering index on New Year's Day, where I use my own formula to create a number for which fan bases are suffering the most. And for those of you who don't remember, it's the number of years since the last championship plus number of the years since the team last pennant divided by 4. Then it takes into account number of years since the World Series, the previous World Series title, since the last postseason appearance, since deciding a one-game playoff loss since the last World Series title, sub 500 seasons, 100 loss seasons are all included in the formula. And the Dodger fans are suffering the least. Oakland fans are suffering the most. Now, Kansas City has a relatively low suffering index for their fans. They came in at number 23, where number 1 is the most suffering and number 30 is the least suffering. They came in at number 23 with a 40.56 suffering index. And one of the reasons why it is a lot lower than some other teams is they have had a relatively recent World Series title in 2015 and back-to-back trips to the postseason. They've had a bunch of bad seasons after that, but they made it back to the postseason last year, which helped their score. And they also have a franchise player to build hope for the future. Kansas City, the Royals, have a very good chance to continue being a playoff team. They have a legit all-star MVP candidate. They also play in a very winnable division. Yes, that division sent 3 playoff teams last year in October, but it's a winnable division. Cleveland, Detroit, Minnesota, Kansas City, Chicago. Of those teams, I'm leaning right now towards Detroit, but Cleveland obviously was a 90-some-odd win team last year. Kansas City did well, and Minnesota had a winning season. And Chicago obviously stinks. But they're an intriguing division with a big-time player who are building upon a success from last year. Now, Philadelphia ranked at number 20 with a 57.44 suffering index. They've had a recent trip to the World Series. They're a regular playoff team. And I think they have an excellent chance of winning the division this year. I love their pitching. And they have a legit MVP as well in Bryce Harper. And a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because they went to the World Series in 2022, looked like they were going to absolutely moonwalk to the World Series in 2023, and they blew those final 2 games to Arizona at home. And then last year got 2-by-4 by the Mets in the wild card series. They took a step back in a year where it looked like I thought they were going to win the World Series. I thought they had the hitting, and they certainly had the pitching. So these are 2 franchises, Philadelphia and Kansas City, in baseball, who have a legit shot of winning it all, have a good shot of maybe meeting in the World Series. And if one of those teams falls apart, having the Super Bowl team, the comparable Super Bowl team, might, take some of the sting if they don't go for it all in 2025. So I'm predicting Kansas City is going to win. And of those 2 teams right now, I'm saying there's more pressure on Philadelphia than there is on Kansas City because this is like the 4th year of this run for the Phillies coming up. 22, 23, this is the 4th year for it. And time has come for the Phillies to get over the hump and win those final 4 games with this group. So right now I'm saying there's more pressure on the Philadelphia Phillies than there is on the Kansas City Royals. However, that may change after this football game. And when we come back, the game will have been played. Let's hear from our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. There's no better place to get in on the action than America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a 4th quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. The app is so easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. So right now, New FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit fanduel.com to join today. That's fanduel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. There you go. That was the Super Bowl. And the final score is really, really misleading. What was the final of that one? It was as my mom would say, was the final score was a lot to not enough. It was 40-22, but it wasn't really that close. I almost said the Royals. The Chiefs scored a couple of garbage time uh, touchdowns, and it looks like that Jalen Hurt won the MVP. I thought it probably should have been someone on the defense because the defense absolutely stymied them. The interesting thing is that the NFL.com has this thing with experts where they, before the Super Bowl, they had, I think it was 20 predictions of what excuse me, sorry, just my headphones, 20 predictions of what they thought the final score of the Super Bowl was going to be. And all 20 of them picked Kansas City to win. File that under whoops. Well, there you go. Philadelphia fans, be happy. Don't be stupid. Please, just celebrate. You don't have to destroy anything. But now, does that take any pressure off the Phillies? That's the question. I think it probably does a little bit when you have a fan base that is really, really hungry for a championship, and the Eagles wound up pulling one off. I think there's it has that aura of desperation of a fan base has been taken away, but I still think the Philadelphia Phillies do have a lot of pressure on them because this is really their window of opportunity to be an elite team is still there. Make no mistake about it. They are still an outstanding team. I still think they're a mid-90 win team. I like their pitching better than the New York Mets. I like their depth better than the Atlanta Braves. And they have a secret weapon for winning pennants, and that's Dave Dombrowski. Dave Dombrowski will pull the proverbial trigger. And next thing you know, you will see, they will pull the trigger on bringing in a player that they need right now, even if it costs them a minor leaguer who's a top prospect, because he is all about, hey, I don't care about prospects. I'm here to win right now. Now, in the offseason, the Phillies didn't make the big giant splash that some other teams did, which I know has made some Phillies fans a little bit anxious. They did bring in Jordan Romano. I like that move. It gives them depth in their bullpen. They brought in Jesus Luzardo. You're not 100% sure what you're going to get out of Jesus Luzardo, but at least he gives you depth, and he does not have to be the ace. They have aces. They have aces on their team, and they have a pretty deep starting pitching staff as it is right now. If they do get another good year out of Wheeler, if they do get a good year out of Aaron Nola, if some of their other pitchers they have there manage to pull their own, they've got a solid crew there, and they still have Trey Turner. They still have Tom Schwarber. They still have JT Realmuto. And of course, they have Bryce Harper. So while they didn't make the big, huge, sexy move to bring in a franchise player, they still have the foundation there, and they have the guy running the ship who will say, we need this player. This player's available. It'll cost you that prospect. Fine. And ask yourself this, Philadelphia Phillies fans. Whatever your top prospect is right now, if that is the difference between going to the World Series or not, you got to take it. Because a lot of times, how seldom do those top prospects turn into superstars? How many times do you see the player like, oh, you don't want to give him up, actually turn into a top player? It doesn't happen as often as you'd think. And sometimes when you see some of the players who are given up in a big trade, you know what? Oftentimes they don't turn into the big, huge superstars you expect them to be. And if Aiden Miller, all right, that's like one of their top prospects they have right now, double A shortstop, high potential, not going to be playing on the team this year, not going to be on the major league roster this year. If a team says, well, you got to give us that player to get whatever major leaguer who's going to be on the block, whatever prospect you have, Eduardo Tate, nice catching prospect. And Andrew Painter, Justin Crawford, all these names. Dave Dombrowski is like, yeah, take them, because they're trying to win right now. And so because you have someone like that at the forefront of the team, that I don't know who's going to be on the trade block. Part of the reason is we're not 100% sure which teams are going to come out of the gate strong. We know which teams are going to come out of the gate slow. We don't know what fan base is going to look up and suddenly see their team being sellers. And then there's the weird sort of elephant in the room, which is San Diego, which it looks like the Seidler lawsuit looks like it, at least maybe it's over. Maybe the ownership is going to the brothers instead of the widow. Maybe it won't be tied into the courts for a bunch of years, but we don't know just yet. It could be a mess. And if that's the case, and you look up and a Dylan Cease is suddenly available, or a Luis Arise is suddenly available in a trade, and for whatever reason the Phillies need to fill in a hole here or there, they are the exact team that would try to pick a team like the pick the Padres pocket. Say that 3 times fast. So while the pressure is not on the Phillies to deliver a title in terms of a starved fan base, the pressure is a little bit on the team to win in this window of opportunity, because this will be a really, really frustrating era of Phillies baseball if they don't win it all at least once. Once you win it all at least once, you kind of get a little of the pressure off the schneid there. The Atlanta Braves, who have put together a wonderful run, been in the playoffs year in and year out, by winning that title in 2021, it takes a ton of pressure off of the legacy of this room, because they did get to the mountaintop. Bruce Bochy's Rangers did get to the mountaintop, and who knows, they may come back, they may not. This Astros squad was able to get to the mountaintop after the scandal. They needed to win again after the scandal. And once they did, a lot of pressure took off the team. And so for this Phillies team, who are having a nice run, and ironically, the best version of this team was probably last year. And they were the team that got bounced in the first round, or got bounced in the division series, as opposed to the last year where they lost Game 7 in the NLCS, and the year before they lost in the World Series. The team that got to the World Series is arguably the weakest team, and the team that only won one postseason game last year was arguably the best. So while the Philadelphia fans have had their championship needs quenched with the blowout in the Super Bowl today, the Phillies need to make sure they don't blow this. And again, I think Dombrowski and that mentality in the ownership and that mentality in the front office of, we're here to win a pennant now. If we stink 5 years down the road, but have won a World Series in 2025, yeah, file that under so what. Meanwhile, the Royals don't have a Chiefs championship to hide behind, but I actually like what they've done, even though it hasn't been incredibly sexy. Now, a couple of things have gone the Royals' way. First of all, they play in the Central. And as I said, the Central has some good teams, but there is no one great team in that division. I've made the argument there's no great team in the American League. But the fact that they play in the American League Central means they have a shot. The White Sox aren't going to win. All the other teams, it's a shot. Cleveland, obviously, they're the defending champs. Kansas City, Detroit, Minnesota, they've all been in the playoffs recently. They've all have some good teams and they all have some flaws. But 89, 90 wins will probably do the job. Now, um, Michael Walker comes back, and then they also, they signed Carlos Estevez, and then they traded for Jonathan India. Jonathan India in the infield, I think, is a solid move. It cost him Brady Singer, but do you know what? I think that to bring in a Jonathan India to that lineup and keeping Michael Walker around, pretty smart. Bringing back Michael Lorenzen, pretty smart. Having major leaguers on the roster is pretty smart. And Kyle Wright is there. Kyle Wright may be a bounce back candidate. You don't know if you're going to get great Seth Lugo like they did last year or mediocre. You're not sure what you're going to get from Cole Reagans. But do you know what? You have a bunch of major leaguers on that team. And I think a mid 80 win year is enough to get them into at least into the postseason. Their bullpen, I like their bullpen. Estevez in that bullpen is pretty good. They acquired Lucas Urseg from Oakland last year. He seemed to fit in pretty well. They have Hunter Harvey. No one's going to confuse this with the bridge to Mariano Rivera, but they have major leaguers in the rotation. They have major leaguers in the bullpen. They have a couple of decent hitters. And, oh, yeah, they have Bobby Witt Jr. They have a franchise player and who seems to be just improving and improving and improving. And so I like the fact that they address, neither one of these teams made the big sexy moves. They both improved their bullpen, and the Phillies are just laying in the weeds, I think. Like, you know what? We got stars. Let's see, if someone gets hurt, if we need to fill in somewhere, they'll make the moves. The Royals saying, well, we know we've got a superstar. We know we have decent pitching, and we now know we have a slightly deeper bullpen. So they could compete with Cleveland, Minnesota, and Detroit. And Chicago sucks. So while the Chiefs didn't win, there is a possibility the Royals could pick up that mantle and run off. If they win the division, the key would be, can you top the Yankees or Baltimore or whoever comes out of the West? And with each team, the Yankees are maybe the best team in the American League, but they're incredibly flawed. I think they're a 92, 93 win team. Baltimore, low 90s, high 80 wins. Same thing with Houston. Same thing with Texas. Again, this strikes me like when the National League in 2007, the Diamondbacks had the best record in the National League with a negative run differential and 90 wins. Not one other team in the National League won 91 games that year. That's what this American League feels like this year. A bunch of pretty good teams. A bunch of teams that are content with being an 80-something win ball club instead of pushing the team over the top. And Kansas City will play as well as any of those teams and seem to be prepared and can build upon a surprising run at the playoffs last year. And they made it to the division series, and they played the Yankees well. I mean, the Yankees 1-4, but they didn't embarrass themselves. And now they can build upon that. So Philadelphia Eagles took a little bit of the pressure off of the Phillies, but the Phillies got to win very soon. And Kansas City fans, you don't get another Super Bowl this year. 3-peats are hard to do. However, the Royals could give you a fun summer. So follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And please, please, please leave comments here on YouTube. And if you're listening to us or watching us every day, if you leave that comment, put on that hashtag #EverydaySully, because it helps us know who's listening every single day. Talking about the Super Bowl in baseball terms. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.